Tuesday, February 12th, 2013. In the streets of Los Angeles, a disgruntled former LAPD officer ignites a brutal 9-day campaign of vengeance, vowing to kill any and all police officers throughout Southern California, declaring an open war on law enforcement and their families. Armed with a Chris Vector submachine gun and a military background, the gunman ambushed officers from county to county, triggering one of the largest manhunts in modern history, spanning from the San Fernando Valley to the snow-covered Big Bear Mountain wilderness, where the standoff reached its fiery end.
7 Bernard deployed and we have a fire.
Copy, 7 Bernard deployed and we have a fire.
In 2006, 27-year-old Christopher Dorner graduates from the LAPD's Academy and is sent to FTO, a field training program broken up into 4 phases throughout 4 consecutive months, where brand new officers are paired with 3 field training officers who show them how to use what they learned in the Academy in the real world. But before Dorner could even finish first phase of FTO, he took a leave of absence from the department and deployed for 1 year with the Navy Reserve. And by the time he returned in 2007 to begin FTO once again, the skills he acquired in the Academy were a bit rusty, and it showed, as Dorner was fired from the LAPD altogether only months later in 2008. But his problems with the LAPD began as early as the Academy, where he filed several complaints against several of his classmates, even telling his primary FTO that he was planning on suing the LAPD after he completed his probation, in response to how the LAPD failed to respond to his several complaints. Now kids, this is what we call a blue falcon. A blue falcon is blue and has 2 wings, one sensitive and one that can't take joke good. Here's how to use it in a sentence. 3 years ago, I made this same video on YouTube, but YouTube did not like it, so it got Blue Falcon. That's right. This video is much better. Now, most new officers have a hard time during FTO, but Dorner had an unusually rough time. Like, the dude physically cried and asked his FTO if he could go back to the academy for remedial training. Now, it's not a terrible thought if the dude really cares about the job. I mean, he missed an entire year, but at the end of the day, some people aren't cut out for policing. You either get it or you don't. And Dorner was blowing FTO, and he knew it, and he needed someone to blame. And on July 28th of 2007, Dorner and his FTO responded to a disturbance-type case at a DoubleTree hotel in San Pedro, California, involving a mentally ill man who Dorner later arrested. 2 weeks following the arrest, Dorner was given an unsatisfactory score by his FTO on his DORs, basically confirming to Dorner that he was definitely about to fail FTO. The following day, Dorner filed a report alleging that his FTO had used excessive force in her treatment of the mentally ill man, accusing her of kicking the man in the chest and in the face while he was in custody, laying on the ground. LAPD investigated the complaint by examining the allegation against Dorner's FTO and the truthfulness through an internal review board of 2 LAPD captains. Dorner's attorney at the board hearing was former LAPD captain Randall Kwan. Remember the name Kwan because it's important later. The review board heard testimony from a number of witnesses who witnessed most of the incident, claiming that they did not see any officer kick the man at any point in time. The investigation concluded that Dorner made the entire thing up out of spite for failing FTO. Given the unusually high number of questionable complaints in his first 2 years of employment and the timing of his report against his FTO who was failing him, Dorner was fired for his lack of truthfulness, because Dorner was a massive liability. And only a few weeks later, Dorner attempted to appeal his termination through the Los Angeles County Superior Court, but the appeals court concluded that the LAPD had substantial evidence for its findings and the decision was final. And Dorner knew right then and there he would never be a cop at any agency in the nation after being fired for lying during FTO. So he decides, you know what, I actually hate all cops in America, and I'm gonna kill every single one of them in Southern California for firing me. So this piece of shit sets out to do just that. On February 1st, a mysterious package arrives to Anderson Cooper containing a DVD of Dorner explaining the problems he faced with the LAPD, accompanied by a bullet-riddled LAPD challenge coin with 1 minute of angle written on the back. But before we get into Dorner's mission, just a quick word from the sponsor of today's video, Aura. In today's world, Data brokers hold information on over 500 million people, each with thousands of data points. This $319 billion industry is rapidly growing and with little regulation. With data breaches and cybersecurity threats on the rise, it's hard to really know how secure your information is. But with Aura, you'll feel confident that your information is secure because Aura does it all in one convenient place and works around the clock to protect and keep your data and personal information away from data leaks and data brokers. And by automatically opting out of data broker lists, Aura has significantly reduced the number of robocalls that I receive, giving me a peace of mind and helping secure my information. But that's not all they do. Aura provides comprehensive protection that includes antivirus software, a VPN for secure browsing, secure password management, identity theft insurance, and even credit monitoring, all in one single app. You don't need to manage multiple subscriptions to multiple apps on your phone. Aura consolidates everything you need into one convenient platform, saving you time, money, and storage. If you'd like to stick it to robocallers and protect your information, I highly recommend checking out Aura. They're even offering you guys a 2-week free trial. Simply go to aura.com/PopoMedic or click the link in the description and protect you and your family's information today. 2 days later, on February 3rd, 28-year-old Monica Kwan and her fiancé, 27-year-old Keith Lawrence, are both shot dead in Lawrence's parked car within the parking structure of their condominium complex in Ravine, California. Kwan, a women's basketball assistant coach at Cal State Fullerton, was the daughter of Randall Kwan, the former LAPD captain turned attorney who represented Dorner during his 2008 dismissal hearing. And after killing Monica Kwan and Keith Lawrence, on February 4th at around 1:25 a.m., Dorner published an 11,000-word manifesto on Facebook describing his plans to kill any and all police officers in Southern California and declaring unconventional and asymmetric warfare upon the Los Angeles Police Department unless the department publicly admits that he was fired in retaliation for reporting excessive force. Dorner listed at least 40 law enforcement personnel whom he knew personally and was prepared to kill. As for the rest of the manifesto, it's just a narcissistic, psychotic love letter to himself, which even includes how sad he is he won't be around to see the third Hangover movie because he won't survive his mission. Not like, I'm sad I won't get married and start a family. No, he's sad he won't see the Hangover Part 3. I mean, does this guy clap on airplanes or does this guy clap on airplanes? On February 5th, according to military sources, Dorner checked into Naval Base Point Loma in San Diego and skipped the checkout procedures when he left. While in San Diego, Dorner attempted to steal a yacht from an 81-year-old man by holding him at gunpoint. However, Dorner threw the mooring rope into the water, causing the rope to get tangled in the prop, disabling the yacht. Wasn't this guy in the fucking Navy? Dorner fled the area, dropping his LAPD badge near the crime scene like a dumbass. The same day, Irvine PD named Dorner as the prime suspect in the murders of Monica Kwan and Keith Lawrence, after discovering the victims' names listed in the now viral Manifesto, which claimed that Kwan had failed to represent Dorner's interests in favor of those of the LAPD. And 2 days later, on February 7th, 2 LAPD officers were driving to a protection detail in Corona, California, where they were assigned as security for one of the officers mentioned by Dorner in his manifesto, when suddenly they were flagged down by a man who reported seeing Dorner just moments ago at a gas station. The officers began following Dorner's pickup truck on the 15 freeway as Dorner exited off Magnolia. Suddenly, Dorner exited his vehicle on the exit and opened fire, grazing the head of one of the officers and disabling their patrol car. The officers couldn't even notify nearby agencies because they had LAPD radios and were obviously out of district. And not even 20 minutes later, 2 Riverside police officers were fired upon while stopped at a red light. Field training officer Michael Crane unfortunately lost his life after the shooting, and his trainee was rushed to a nearby hospital in critical condition.
2 Riverside police officers have been shot, one of them killed, the other still in surgery right now. Basically, Lieutenant Toussaint telling us that they were not actively searching for Christopher Dorner at the time of the shooting, and they were ambushed by this
On the
person.
same day, at around 5:30 a.m. in Torrance, LAPD officers were assigned to a security detail at another home of an officer listed in the manifesto when they observed a pickup truck driving at a high rate of speed with the headlights turned off, matching the description of Dorner's truck. The vehicle continued toward the officer's direction and flung an object from the window, at which point officers opened fire on the blue Tacoma occupied by 2 females who were in the area delivering newspapers. A total of 103 rounds were fired, and thankfully both females survived and received a settlement of $4.2 million for the incident. Later on that same day, Dorner's actual pickup truck was found torched on a remote trail in Big Bear, California. Dorner then forced his way into an occupied cabin, tied up a couple that was living inside, and decided to hunker down. Multiple agents spread out to search the surrounding area, and nearly 125 officers went door to door searching for Dorner. The media notified the public, the residents were on high alert, and Bear Valley school districts went on lockdown. By February 12th, police raided a hotel in Tijuana, Mexico, based on a tip that Dorner had possibly crossed the border. On the same day, authorities also discovered surveillance footage of Dorner purchasing scuba gear at a sporting goods store in Torrance. The leads were all over the place, crossing cities, counties, countries, agencies, you name it. Southern California was on pins and needles. Even my own dad, who was working for Ontario Police Department at the time, was assigned as the incident commander for the funeral of Officer Crane due to the high risk of a possible attack at the funeral. Dorner used these terror tactics well and to his advantage, but as soon as the search began to wind down, he took the couple's car out of their driveway and started heading back down the mountain until he crashed, disabling the vehicle. A few hours later, San Bernardino County sheriffs responded to a report of a carjacking of a white Dodge pickup at 12:22 p.m. Fish and Game wardens, of all people, were the first to spot the vehicle and recognize Dorner as the driver. Officers from numerous agencies pursued Dorner to a cabin near Big Bear Lake, where Dorner exited the vehicle, opened fire on 2 sheriff's deputies, striking both while forcing himself into the cabin. The officers were airlifted to Loma Linda Hospital, where Detective Jeremiah McKay was unfortunately pronounced dead. Responding officers surrounded the cabin and attempted to force Dorner out by using tear gas, after pleading with Dorner to peacefully surrender. Due to Dorner's lack of response, police used a demolition vehicle to knock down most of the walls, at which point Dorner opened fire, exchanging hundreds of rounds with police, where Dorner laid fortified in the cabin, wearing body armor and firing rounds consistently at officers, using a Bushmaster XM15 E2S, a Remington 700, Benelli M4 Super 90, Glock 17s, Glock 22s, FN 57s, and of course, his Chris Vector. He was also throwing smoke grenades and heard yelling at the top of his lungs, going full dollar store Rambo trying to kill as many cops as he possibly could. At this point, police deployed pyrotechnic tear gas canisters into the cabin, and moments later, the cabin caught fire. And before the cabin was fully involved, a single gunshot was heard coming from within the cabin. As the fire continued, Dorner's ammunition began to explode, making it too dangerous for firefighters to enter the scene. But by February 13th, as crews cleared the cabin, Dorner's remains were found inside.
Driver's license in the rubble. Dorner is the former Los Angeles police officer suspected of killing a young couple and 2 law enforcement officers. 2 other officers are recovering from their wounds. On
February 14th, medical examiners confirmed, during an autopsy using dental records, that the body found within the basement of the burned cabin was 100% Christopher Dorner's, and that Dorner had died from a single self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Dorner saw himself as a warrior against injustice, yet his actions were steeped in the very brutality he claimed to oppose. And while institutions often breed the very forces that seek to destroy them, that does not justify the actions of those who turn violence upon the innocent. There are plenty of conspiracy theories suggesting that officers in dispatch conspired to deliberately burn down the cabin as some part of some sinister plot.
7 burners deployed and we have a fire.
Copy, 7 burners deployed and we have a fire.
The reality is that pyrotechnic tear gas, commonly referred to as burners, generates extreme heat and can inadvertently start fires. While there's debate over whether law enforcement intentionally or recklessly deployed these canisters, knowing they could ignite the blaze, focusing on this controversy is a cheap distraction from the ruthless campaign of murder, ambushes, and terror that shattered families and left a trail of devastation across Southern California.
There's a lot of people that have wonderful relationships. I felt mine was perfect.
If you don't remember anything else that we tell you about your dad, remember this. You were the light of his life. Everyone that I've talked to repeated to me that Mike Crane was above all else a family man. He never stopped talking about you. All his hopes and dreams were about his children.
And I think she was definitely someone that we could all go to and someone we could all talk to about anything that we needed to talk about. And so she was definitely more than a coach for all of us.
Being one of the youngest officers that San Bernardino County has hired. But one thing I knew about Jeremiah, it wasn't just about serving, because he could serve as a firefighter. He could make a difference as a firefighter. But that actually wasn't enough for him. He wanted to intervene when somebody was hurting somebody else.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more mini docs in the works, and you don't want to miss them. And be sure to check out the last Medal of Honor episode over on Black Rifle Coffee's YouTube channel. And be sure to check me out over on Instagram and X as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.